Welcome to MindShift Power Podcast, a show for teenagers and the adults who work with them, where we have raw and honest conversations. I'm your host, Fatima Bay, the MindShifter. And welcome, everyone. Today we have with us Coach Carmen Duncan. She is out of Schenectady, New York. She's the founder of Mission Accomplished Transitional Services. She is multi-award winning. And we are talking today because November is Runaway Homeless Youth Month. So I thought it was an appropriate time to have this conversation. And boy, does she have a story to tell. If you're not inspired by the end of this conversation, then there's something wrong with you. All right, Coach Carmen, how you doing?
I'm doing fabulous today. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So I like to dive right in. How did you become homeless?
Unfortunately, my dad was sentenced to several years in prison, which led to some contention between my siblings and my step family, which led to me being disconnected from my step family, which left me in the city of Albany, New York, by myself as a teenager. So while my step family was here, because of the contention, I did not feel comfortable reaching out to them. And then I also did not have the best relationship with my sister, who was living up here at the time. So that led to me bouncing from one house to the next as a high school student, until I found a home.
And how old were you?
I was 17. I was 16 or 17 at that time.
That must be a tough spot to be in as a teen. And I know there's a lot of other teens out there right now who are where you were. And they just don't let people know about it because it's hard to talk about.
Yeah.
And how did you get out of homelessness?
Well, I was fortunate enough to have a friend and a friend's mom who allowed me to stay with them in their home, although they did not know me for a very long time. So I call her TT Randella or TT Della. So she is definitely an auntie to me now, and from then until now. So we only knew each other for about 6 months, my friend Sarita and I. And her mom she took me in. She was able to recognize that there was something that was going on. And she had been a foster mom before. So she had that intuitive sense. So I stayed with them for, I believe, about a year. Maybe it was 6 months, but that was so long ago. But, stayed with them for some time. And during that time, I was connected to a guidance counselor at Albany High School, who was my best friend's guidance counselor. And her name is Miss Baker, who connected me with one of the counselors at the school, who ultimately ended up sharing the opportunity to apply for the independent living program through a local community-based organization. And that independent living program allowed for or provided housing for youth in a runaway homeless system. And what they did was pay for our rent and our utilities, and we had to take care of our food and our personal care items, our clothes. But they made sure that we had a safe place to live.
That's awesome. So what I'm hearing is that you had several people, not just one, who stepped in and each of them did something.
Yes.
It wasn't just one person who fell out from the sky was your savior. It was people who recognized something and said, okay, what can I do to help? And I think very often in life, we think that we have to do everything or have to have all the answers, and we don't. We just need to do something, and a whole bunch of somethings is what helped you. I want to go back into when you did first become homeless. I think it's important to talk about that part for people to hear. Where was your mind during that time when you're just like, what am I going to do? And you started hopping from house to house.
I don't remember. I mean, I don't remember. I do know that while that was a very devastating time of my life, I'm grateful that I have a mom who showed me what it meant to be resilient, a grandmother who showed me what it meant to be resilient. So, that was ingrained in me. And, the adults in our life don't realize that they're planting seeds when they are showing up for themselves and for you, especially during times of survival. So I believe that because I witnessed my mom make things happen through trials and tribulations, I just naturally, the resilience just kicked in of, one, not graduating and not going to school was not an option.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that.
I utilized my resources. 3, I was wherever I could be until I felt like, I was there for too long. I had overstayed my welcome, so I would go to the next house. And then 4, I learned how to still look the part, so people didn't know what was going on. Mm-hmm. And some of that looking the part was towards my mom too, because my mom didn't live up here. So she would come and she would visit, and it was like, I'm working and, I still got the clothes and stuff, and not showing that I'm super down or anything when she came up, because I understood that if I moved back home with her, my life was going to go a complete different direction, because I moved up here with my father, because I was getting very heavily involved in street violence. And the last situation could have been a life or death situation. And even to this day, for the people who are listening, you might hear in my voice that I'm downplaying it. But, I was moving towards a very volatile relationship with friends and in the streets. So I was smart enough to understand, if I go back home, I know what direction I'm going to go. So I'd rather weather the streets here where people don't really know me and figure it out. And that's what I did.
I think it's awesome that you recognized that as a teenager. Because that's a tough spot to be in. And I think you just made a very powerful statement about the fact that you watched resilience of those around you. Mm-hmm. In your case, it was your mother, and I think you said your grandmother. Mm-hmm. For some people, it might be someone down the street if they don't have relatives, but watching the adults around you. And adults, if you're listening, what you do right now, good or bad, really matters. So that's an important statement. Now, I mentioned that you are the founder of Mission Accomplished Transition Services. Mm-hmm. What about what we're talking about right now? What does that have to do with why you started Mission Accomplished?
Well, all those people that I mentioned, they weren't biologically attached to me, but they had an affinity to me as a human and a commitment to me as a young person and wanting to see me be safe and graduate from high school. So those coaches, mentors, sponsors, who showed up for me helped me navigate a very challenging time of my life in a way that led to me being in safe housing, being able to secure my job, and being able to prepare to move on to college. So if those individuals were not there for me, where would I have been? So as a result, I made the decision to start Mission Accomplished Transition Services to provide the same services that individuals provided to me. And I also was a big sister through Big Brothers Big Sisters, which is a mentoring organization. And I was able to see that there are a lot of young people who need that support, regardless of what your socioeconomic background is, right? Because a lot of times people believe that the individuals who need mentorship most or coaching most are those people who come from disenfranchised backgrounds. Mm-hmm. But you'll hear everyone up to, the president of the United States. I'm sure you ask them, who was the most helpful to you during the most pivotal time of your life when you were transitioning into college and career? And in addition to their parents, they're going to mention teachers and coaches and, just other adult supports that were around who believed in them and challenged them, supported them, was their cheerleader. And all of us, when we have that network of support who value us as human beings and value the goals that we have in our life, so much so that they are willing to dedicate time in their very fulfilling schedules to help you figure out how to get to that next place, is how we get to that next place.
Mm-hmm. I want to point out something to the audience right now. If you're listening to what Coach Carmen is saying, she got all of that assistance. She got really great support from people around her, and they weren't quote unquote family. And I'm constantly telling people some of the best people around you or some of the best family aren't not necessarily blood related. And mm-hmm. there are people who care about you, who will support you, and they don't care where you came from. And they just want to help you to get to where you should be. There are a lot of us out there like that. But the other part I want to point out, if you were listening, and you, especially if you're young and you're listening, she didn't just sit there and expect them to carry her anywhere. She took their assistance, but she also did her part. She had determination. She said, I am going to finish school no matter what things look like. She didn't just sit there. I'm sure she cried a lot, but she didn't just sit there and cry and pout and do nothing and say, well, somebody's got to help me and expect someone else to carry you. No one's going to carry you in a wagon. We'll grab your hands and walk with you, but you still have to walk too. Just wanted to point that out.
Yeah. And that's a critical point. That's a critical point, because through my journey as a mentor, as a coach, as a sponsor, which for those of you out there who may not know the difference between the three, a mentor is someone who provides more general support. They're there for you personally and or professionally. They give you guidance on whatever you may come to them for. A coach is someone who is very results driven. You establish a goal, you have action steps, and their commitment to you is to ensure that you achieve your goal by the specific time frame that you have set for yourself, while assisting you with developing that level of confidence in order to achieve that goal. And a sponsor is someone who has a level of influence, and they also have resources that they are able to share with you in order to get you closer to the goal that you have for yourself. So a sponsor is someone who may have influence on an application process for a fellowship. So they provide you with the information for the fellowship, and they are willing to verbally promote you to the committee that reviews all of the applications, which means that you're more likely to get into that fellowship. So it is incredibly important that we show up as that for our young people and for our peers.
Yes.
But we can only do for them what they are willing to do for themselves. I have found myself in positions where I am working harder for people than they are willing to work for themselves. Mm-hmm. And that can lead to a level of discouragement and resentment towards that individual, because you just want to shake them. Like, don't you see the potential in yourself? and they're not following through on expectations that they set for themselves, that y'all set together. And you could become burnt out, trying to help individuals. It doesn't mean that you go ghost on them. It doesn't mean that you end the relationship. But what it does mean is that you are not showing up for them 100% when they're showing up for themselves 50%. So
Right.
it's important to teach people how to treat you too. Because while you have resources, which resource could be information, it could be money, it could be influence, whatever it may be, you have influences. You have resources. You're a human too. And you want to know that you matter too. And you need to be respected too. And you have to establish that expectation for whomever, regardless of what their age is, because then they'll take advantage of your kindness. And sometimes you don't even realize it before it's too late. So I definitely agree with what Fatima said, where it's like you show up, but you don't overextend yourself.
Very important. And thank you for that breakdown of the difference between mentoring, coaching, and sponsorship, because sometimes those concepts are misunderstood and the wrong words are used. And then what that word means to you is not what I think it means. And it just causes confusion, I think, sometimes. And people are well intended with it, but don't always understand that there are differences. Yeah. And
another thing that I'll say when it comes to sponsors is like, they're like the car, right? Like they're your driver. They're like your chauffeur. They drive you to all the opportunities and drop you off and let you go on about your business because they already spoke to someone about the value that you bring. But now it's your responsibility to secure the opportunity.
Yes. And there is a big difference. I mention that because I think in today's society, we have a couple different sets of people. Most people fall into these two different categories. Right now, we're talking about youth, but this principle extends beyond just teenagers. You have the crowd who's like, powder my booty and walk me everywhere, or, carry me everywhere while I just lay back and do nothing. And they're the same ones that have excuses for everything instead of solutions for anything. And then you have the ones who are just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know if I can be helped. And those are the people you want to help the most, because those are the ones that usually, if you take them to the opportunity, they'll do something with it. They just don't know how. And those are the people that I focus on, and I think it's important to point that out that, we are here for you. We are absolutely here for you, but you got to be there for you too. And if you're not there for you, I'm not going to do it for you.
And for those individuals, like that first group of people that you talked about, it's also important for individuals who acknowledge and promote themselves as mentors, sponsors, and coaches to know that at times, like people have real trauma. People are walking around with some real trauma. And people make themselves look real good, right? Because we live in a society where you have to be confident all the time. You need to be smiling all the time. It's kind of like, every time we ask somebody, how are you doing? The immediate response is good. How are you doing?
Exactly.
Like there's and they could be having the most horrible day. But the immediate response is good because we're taught that we always have to show face. So when it comes to the first group of individuals that you described, I believe that it is important, while not getting too clinical, it's important to ask someone who's showing some apathy in their life, what trauma have you had that holds you back from showing up for yourself? Like what story did somebody tell you? Because sometimes you have people that have individuals in their life who will tell them that they're not good enough. So they adopt that. And then you have someone like myself or like you that comes along and we're like, you're amazing and you could do anything. Right. But they've been getting messaging from some of the closest people in their life that they're not going to amount to anything. They're not beautiful. They're not smart enough, whatever it may be. We just never know what people are carrying. So it's important to ask that question as well. That doesn't mean you give a pass, but it helps to have a level of understanding why they're not showing up for themselves. And some people will share with you and other people won't. But I mean, I reached out to a family member after I got into the independent living program. And when I got on the phone with that person, they said, I thought you would be barefoot and pregnant.
Wow.
Yeah.
They really said that to you?
They did. I thought you would be barefoot and pregnant. And it's like, wow, so you haven't come to the school to see if I'm all right or nothing, you know, but I call you to let you know that I'm okay, even though you're the adult in this situation. And one of the first things you say to me is that I thought that you would be barefoot and pregnant. And I carry that with me since the day that person said that to me. And it fuels me, right? Because this is something that a person thought about me. And I'm not that.
Oh, you're definitely not that. Speaking of which, I want to point out something to the audience. So you were homeless and then you got some help. So you got into an independent living program, which is freaking awesome. And what else did you go on to do academically?
I have a bachelor's of science in psychology, and I also have a master's in social work with a concentration on macro, which is management, administration, community development or organizing, resource development, and organizational development.
Wow, you're good, because I can't remember what the acronym stood for either. A long one. But the reason I wanted to point that out to the audience is I want to point out the fact that you were homeless as a 16, 17-year-old, which is freaking scary for anybody. I don't care who you are. You were in a situation, but you didn't stay there. You went on to accomplish things. And if you were listening right now, I don't care how old you are. We're talking about teens, but you adults know that some of this applies to you too. No matter where you are in life, you don't have to stay there. You know, it doesn't have to be where you stay. Your current situation can be a current situation, but it's your job to make it part of your past. And there are those of us who would absolutely love to help you exceed and excel, etc. But where you were doesn't have to be where you are. It doesn't have to be where you stay or where you're going if you make a choice today.
And I would also say to the teens out there, I would say to the teens as well as the adults who have had some unfavorable experiences in their life due to their parents' inability to be able to do certain things. Understand that your parents did the best they could with what they had.
Yeah.
And it's taken me a long time to get here today. But, you know, I have some badass parents. Like, when I really sit back and I think about what my parents have been through, while also showing me what it means to be happy in life and do what you want to do, I have some badass parents. You know, my mom, she worked full time while having a business throughout my childhood, and she would take me with her to clean people's houses. So she had a residential cleaning business, and she would take me to clean people's take me with her to clean people's houses when I was in my teenage years. And then she ended up, you know, she continued the business, and now she just does commercial cleaning. But what that showed me is the type of house that I could have. What that showed me is the type of support services that I could purchase someday. And then with my father, while my dad has struggled with addiction throughout his life, you know, my dad was a hustler. He would sell CDs out of his car. He would sell sweatsuits. Daddy sold drugs. You know, but what that showed me is that I could sell anything I want to, you know, so, and make a living out of it. And while he did the hustling, you know, there were times where he was working for, in between time, he would be working for human service agencies and helping people who were struggling with substance abuse or in a homeless situation. He's a giver. My dad's a giver, and he wants to see people do well. So I am my parents. Like, even though things did not go the traditional way for me as a teenager, and I experienced a very challenging time, and it led to feelings of abandonment and resentment and anxiety and paranoia and, all of those things, because I had to take care of myself at such a young age. I didn't get to be a teenager, really, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, my parents showed me that you can create your life and you can make money doing you can make money by doing what you want to do, but you do have to present yourself appropriately for you to be able to get clients and what have you.
Right.
So the entrepreneurial piece is something that they showed me and probably didn't even realize that they showed me. And then both of them are very, very resilient. They've gotten through some very hard things in their life. And they're still kicking, so I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I have the parents that I have.
That's good. There's not a lot of people. Well, there's some people who can say similar statements, and then there's a lot of people who can't. But I always like to, for those of you who are listening, who have people in your life that are showing you things, if they're not your parents, that's still okay. It might be an uncle, an aunt, a grandmother, somebody down the street, somebody at church, somebody at the mosque, somebody at a community center, whatever. There's the humans around you, and we can all learn something from them, good and bad, because no one's perfect. So we're going to learn good and bad from everyone if we want to. But speaking of entrepreneurship, tell us about Mission Accomplished and what is it that you do?
Mission Accomplished Transition Services is a nonprofit career and business education organization for teens and young professionals up to the age of 35 who are in the fashion, beauty, construction, interior decorating, and mural painting industries. We have 2 signature programs. We have our teen internship program, where students get paid to learn about the business behind the industries and explore the variety of careers that are available to them within the industries. And then we have our adult program for individuals between the ages of 18 to 35 who have 4 or more years experience in the industries, and they are looking for assistance with developing programs and elevating their brand so that they are able to share their expertise and talents and get paid for it. So our advanced institutes are perfect for individuals who are very passionate about teaching people about certain things within their particular industry, but they need some assistance with structuring the program and packaging it so that they're able to sell it, and then also positioning themselves to be a sought after subject matter expert, a thought leader within their industry.
I can tell you guys, audience listening, I have personally watched Coach Carmen in front of high school classrooms, and she's really good with teens. I have her on here not just because she was a homeless teen, but she works really well with teens too. If you are in the capital region, I strongly advise that you would reach out to her and reach out to Mission Accomplished if one of those things applies to you or one of your kids or somebody around you. Mission Accomplished is very, very, very good at what they do and very thorough. So I have personally been involved with them, and I've watched some of the outcomes for some of the students who have come through Mission Accomplished, and it's pretty powerful.
Thank you.
So how can people find you?
You can find us on Instagram at MindShifter. That's the number 1, the number 2. And that's on Instagram and Facebook. And you can find me on LinkedIn. And hopefully the link could be shared in the show notes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You connect with me on LinkedIn and follow and engage with the Mission Accomplished social media pages.
All right. Well, Coach Carmen, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. And I hope that all of you listeners got something out of this today.
And now for a mind-shifting moment.
I want you to take away one of the principles we talked about today. You can be in a situation, but the situation doesn't have to be your future. What are you dealing with right now that is a temporary situation? I want you to answer that for yourself. And then what can you do to make sure it's not a future situation? It's a matter of choice in your actions. You can choose a better future right now.
Thank you for listening to MindShift Power Podcast. Please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel at The MindShifter. If you have any comments, topic suggestions, or would like to be a guest on the show, please visit fatimabay.com/podcast. Remember, there's power in shifting your thinking. Tune in for next week.